I want to tell you about the year I sat down at my own kitchen table at 85 years old with the stub of a pencil and the back of an old feed receipt and did the hardest arithmetic of my long life. I did not count my money, and I did not count my years. I counted my habits, my own small daily habits, the ones that had been quietly teaching my family to keep their distance from me. There were 13. I wrote down every one, and when I finished, I did not feel ashamed, and I did not feel proud. I felt honest, maybe for the first time in years. So sit with me a while today. Come close to the fire. Because if you are growing older and you have felt your children visit less and stay shorter, felt them hold you at arm's length, felt the room go a little quiet when you walk into it, then I have something to tell you that took me 85 years to learn, and I would rather you learn it sooner than I did. The world will tell you the old get pushed aside because we have become a burden, that our bodies slow and our stories repeat, and the young simply have no more room for us. But the old ones knew better. My grandmother, who outlived 2 husbands and 4 of her own children, used to say, "Nobody is ever pushed out of a warm house by their gray hair. They are pushed out one small habit at a time, and every one of those habits has a door that opens back in. It is almost never our age that empties the chairs around our table. It is a handful of small, fixable habits. And the only medicine is the courage to name them out loud, honestly, without excuse. So let me name mine, not so you'll think less of me, but so you might catch one of your own before it costs you what it nearly cost me. The first habit I wrote down because it shamed me most was keeping score. Somewhere in my 70s, I had become a man who kept a ledger of every slight. My son forgot to call on a Sunday and I filed it away. My daughter would drive 3 hours to see me, and instead of open arms, I would meet her at the door with, "It's been 26 days, not, 'I'm glad you're here.' 26 days, as if love were a debt and I was the collector come to call. My grandfather used to say, "A man who counts what he is owed will always be poor, no matter how much he is given." And he was right. I taught my own children that walking through my door meant being handed a bill, and nobody hurries back to a place where they land in debt the moment they arrive. The fix was simple, though not easy. I stopped saying the number. When they came, I said only, "I'm so glad you're here." I let the ledger burn, and once I stopped counting the days between visits, the visits themselves drew closer together. Now, before I go on to the next one, I want to set something down beside you, gently, because so many of you have written to me asking how a person even begins to mend all this. I gathered everything I know, all 13 of these hard lessons, and a great many more, into a small book. I call it The Native Way. It holds the old ways of keeping your family close in your later years, the quiet habits that pull grown children back to your table, the words to say when you don't know how to start, the things the old ones understood about staying beloved instead of merely tolerated. It is not a grand or heavy thing. It is a companion for exactly the road you are walking right now. If your heart wants it, you'll see where to find it there on the screen. But hear me, there is no pressure at all. I am always here for you whether you ever open it or not. It is simply there, waiting, whenever the time feels right. Now let me give you the second habit, because this one lived so close to the first that I nearly missed it. The second habit was correcting, the constant, endless correcting. I could not let a single thing go by. My grandson would tell a story at the dinner table, and I would stop him to say it wasn't a Tuesday, it was a Wednesday. My daughter would say the winter of '68 was the cold one, and I would say no, it was '69, and I would not rest until she agreed. I thought I was keeping the record straight. What I was really doing was telling everyone at that table that their words were not safe with me, that whatever they said, an old man would be waiting to file down the edges of it. My grandmother used to say, "You can be right or you can be close, but on a small matter you cannot always be both." I had spent years choosing to be right about things that did not matter, the day of the week, the year of the snow, and paying for it with a closeness that mattered more than anything. Nobody wants to tell a story to a judge, and I had made myself the judge of every story told in my house. So I learned to bite my tongue. When my grandson said Tuesday, I let it be Tuesday. What did it cost me? Nothing. What did I gain? A boy who kept talking, who kept coming to me with his stories, because I had finally become a safe place to set them down. The third habit, and the fourth and fifth alongside it, all grew from the same root, so let me bundle them together the way you'd bundle kindling. They were these: turning every conversation back to my own aches, my own troubles, my own long-ago days. My daughter would begin to tell me about a hard week at her work, and before she finished her second sentence, I had turned the whole thing around to my hip, my back, my poor sleep, the doctor who wouldn't listen. My granddaughter would show me something on her little phone that she was proud of, and I would answer with a speech about how it wasn't like that in my day. Every road she started down, I dragged back to my own front porch. I did not do it to be cruel. I did it because I was lonely, and my aches and my old days felt like the only things I had left to offer. But my grandfather had a saying for the man who talks only of himself. He said, "A well that only takes and never gives will find people stop coming to it, even when they are thirsty." I had become a well that only took. My family would arrive full of their own lives, their worries, their small victories, the things they were bursting to share, and they would leave having heard only about my hip. And slowly, without meaning to, they stopped bringing me the bucket at all. The fix was one question. Just one. When someone finished telling me something, instead of answering with my own story, I learned to say, "And then what happened?" 4 words. It turns you from a well into a listener. It tells the other person that their life is the thing worth hearing about at this table. I wish I had learned those 4 words at 40. The 6th and 7th habits were 2 more that traveled together, giving advice that nobody asked for, and worse, giving it as though the grown person in front of me were still a child. My son is a man of 58. He has raised his own children, buried his own losses, built a good life with his own 2 hands. And I would still tell him how to back his truck out of my drive. I would tell him to wear a coat. I would tell him how to run his business, how to talk to his wife, how to raise boys I had not been young enough to chase in 20 years. Every piece of it unasked for. Every piece of it landing on him like a small stone that said, "I do not think you can manage your own life." My grandmother had the cure for this one, and she said it plain. When they want your wisdom, they will hold out their hands for it. Your job is not to pour it over their heads. An elder who gives advice by the bucketful drowns the very respect he is trying to earn. So I learned to wait for the outstretched hand. I learned to ask, "Would you like my thoughts on that, or would you just like me to listen?" And to honor the answer, even when the answer was, "Just listen." And here is the beautiful thing I found. The less advice I forced on my son, the more he began to ask for. Once he knew a question wouldn't bury him, he started coming to me with questions again. Held loosely, my wisdom finally became something he wanted, instead of something he ducked. Now I am going to tell you about the habit I am least proud of, the 8th on my list, and I suspect a few of you are going to shift in your chairs when I name it, because I think it lives in more of us than will ever admit it. It was the martyr's sigh. You know the one. The heavy sigh when you rise from your chair so everyone hears how much it costs you. The "oh, don't mind me" when they make a plan that doesn't put you in the center of it. The "I'll just sit here in the dark then," said quietly enough to seem like you didn't mean it to be heard, but loud enough that it always was. I had turned my own suffering into a hook, and I was fishing with it. I was using guilt to try to catch the love I was too proud to simply ask for. My grandfather saw a man do this once, and afterward he told me, "A sigh can pull a person to your side, but it can never make them glad to be there. You will get their body and lose their heart." That was exactly what I was doing. My children came running when I sighed and moped. Yes, but they came the way you answer an alarm, not the way you go to someone you have missed. I was filling my house with people who felt summoned instead of welcomed. The fix was the hardest of all, because it meant giving up a kind of power. I had to stop performing my loneliness and start simply naming it, plainly, like a grown man. Instead of the heavy sigh, I learned to say, "I've been missing you, and I'd love it if you came by Sunday." No guilt, no hook, just the honest truth offered freely that they were welcome to answer any way they liked. And when they came, because they did come, they came with open hearts instead of braced ones, because I had invited them instead of trapping them. Now, I told you there were 13, and I have named the ones that cut me the deepest. Let me set the last of them down more quickly, the way you lay the small stones on top of a cairn, the stubbornness that would not let me say I was wrong, the way I would go cold and silent for days when I was hurt, and make everyone tiptoe around a silence I refused to explain. The complaining about the food, the weather, the young, the whole world, until being near me felt like standing in a cold drizzle, and the fussing and hovering that would never let a visit simply be easy. Different habits, every one, but they all told my family the same thing without my ever meaning to say it. That loving me was hard work, and that my house was a place you braced yourself to enter instead of a place you longed to come home to. And when I finally saw all 13 written down together on that old receipt, I understood the whole of it. My family had never stopped loving me. They had only grown tired the way you grow tired of a beautiful room that is always kept a little too cold to sit in. And here is the thing I most want you to hear, the thing that let me pick up that pencil in the first place and not just tear the list to pieces in shame. Naming these habits was not the same as hating myself for them. That is the trap, and I want to steer you clear of it. I did not write that list to prove I was a bad man. I wrote it to prove I was still a growing one, that even at 85 the old dog could still learn, the old wall could still come down, the old ledger could still burn. Every one of those 13 habits had a door in it, just as my grandmother said. And a door only ever means one thing. It means you can walk back through. So I forgave myself for all 13. I had come by every one of them honestly, out of loneliness, out of fear, out of the plain hard fact that nobody ever teaches you how to grow old with grace. You are simply handed the years and expected to know. I forgave the frightened, lonely old man who had built those habits, and then I got to work, gently undoing them one at a time. That is not shame, my friends. That is the very opposite of shame. That is an old man deciding he is still worth mending. So let me gather this up for you now, the way my grandmother gathered the ends of her shawl before she said the important thing. If your family has grown distant, I am not asking you to blame yourself. I am asking you to do something braver than blame. I am asking you to be honest. Sit down with your own stub of pencil and ask yourself the hard, freeing questions. Do I keep score? Do I correct the small things and lose the big ones? Do I turn every story back to my own aches? Do I hand out advice that nobody asked me for? Do I sigh instead of simply asking for what I need? Do I go cold and silent and make them guess? You will not like every answer. I did not like mine, but I promise you this. Every habit you have the courage to name is a habit that has a door in it, and every one of those doors opens back into the warm room where your people are waiting. Because they are waiting. That is the part the world never tells you. The very family that seems to hold you at arm's length is, more often than not, just on the other side of one or two small habits, hoping you will be the one brave enough to change first. You are the elder. It is your door to open, and you are never, ever too old to open it. I would like to hear from you now. Of all the habits I named today, the keeping score, the correcting, the turning every story back to myself, the unasked advice, the martyr's sigh, the cold silence, I want you to tell me down in the comments which one hit closest to home. And more than that, I want to hear from those of you who have already broken one. Tell me which habit you set down and what it gave you back. Let this be a fire we sit around together, all of us learning to grow old with a little more grace than we were handed. And if these old words gave you something to hold on to, stay a while. Sit with me again tomorrow, and walk gently until then. You are not too old to change. You never were. Go and open the door.